Welcome to the Daily Plunge. We are in the book of Job, chapter 31. Job is making his closing argument to say that he has been faithful to the Lord. And in fact, we know at the end of the book of Job that in fact God is going to say exactly this, that Job has been faithful to him and that his friends were wrong to accuse him otherwise. We start off in verse 1. Job says, I made a covenant of desiring God with my eyes. And what he's saying is that with my heart, my mind, and soul, with all of me, I desired God. And he says, I'm not looking lustfully. And my eyes are not being turned by some young woman. And to a certain extent, he says, if I can be sexually pure, I certainly can refrain from idolatry. He goes on in verse 4 to say, God, you see inside of me, all of my ways, nothing's hidden from you. You know who I am. And then in verse 6, he goes on to say, he's asking, God, why don't you weigh me and see what I'm like? If my steps have turned aside, you know that, but you know how I'm living by the covenant. And then from verse 7 all the way down to verse 34, Job talks about how he's been faithful. And he says, if I have sinned, and he talks about various ways, then I should be judged. And he gives the reasoning why. But then there's the but I've been innocent. And he starts off by saying, if I have turned away from you in my path, in my heart, then verse 13, if I have been unjust to my servants and treated them poorly, well then, in verse 16, if I have lacked generosity and haven't taken care of the needy, then, verse 21, if I have committed violence against the vulnerable, verse 24, if I have loved money and wealth more than you, put my trust in gold, right, as it says. Verse 26, if I have worshipped the stars, if I have engaged in astrology, then I would have sinned against you. If I was vindictive against my enemies, in verse 29, and then 31, if I was unhospitable, if I didn't welcome the stranger, in verse 33, if I said I was somebody who was good, but truthfully I was not, I would have been a hypocrite. He talks about all of this throughout Job 31, but then he says, starting in verse 35, surely, that someone would listen to me. Oh, that I could get a hearing. Oh, that God would go to court with me. And I'll write my name on the complaint and we'll take it to court and we'll see. I'm going to challenge God. If I've really done this stuff, he says, I'll wear it as a dunce hat. But he says, I am confident that I have been faithful in my steps of faith. Right? As he says in verse 37. And then 38 and through 40, he says, the very land which God has created will be my witness, that if I have done anything that has violated that, the earth itself will cry out. And that's the thing, is what Job is claiming. Not that he's perfect. He's not claiming that. He's claiming that he has been righteous by faith, that he walks by grace, by trusting in God. And he can, we know in the Bible that when he sins, he confesses that. And that's what every Christian is called to live by, not by works, but by faith, trusting in God. We confess our sins, but we trust in God's faithfulness. Well, thanks, friends. Have a blessed day.